Hey everyone. Welcome back to Strange Mind 6. I'm your host Ruby, and today we're going to be reading Spooky Creepy Long Island by Scott. I cannot say his last name, but I will attempt. It's Scott Lefebvre. Yeah, that 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 was not successful. But without further ado, my dear friends, I just want to declare it spooky season. It is officially October, and we are going to be seeing a lot of paranormal, spooky stuff. The veil is getting thinner and thinner, of course, and who knows what we're going to see or experience. And if you have experienced some paranormal things, spooky things, definitely put your story down below in the comments. And when I have enough, I would love to make a video on reading some of your paranormal or scary stories. And yeah, it would be honestly an honor to read them. But without further ado, let's get into Spooky Creepy Long Island, the introduction. And do not forget to grab a drink, grab a snack, or just sit back and relax. And let's get into it. Introduction. Ghosts, witches, vampires. Monsters that only come out by the light of the moon in remote and vacant places. Old places, houses or buildings, or places where people did evil or unfortunate things to themselves or others, or when they met their untimely end through misfortune or accident. Places with memories, places that look like they should be haunted even if they're not. Places like old graveyards, abandoned churches, lighthouses, and mental hospitals. These are the birthplaces of folklore and urban legends. Stories told to us by our friends who knew someone that had something strange or frightening happen to them. Stories almost always told after dark. These are the stories that I wanted to collect and present to you. My purpose is not to pass judgment. My purpose is to collect and present and hopefully inspire the kind of feelings that I used to feel when hearing a particularly well-told story of a supernatural experience by a friend of a friend. It's always a friend of a friend, so please wait until dark. And now that it's dark, please go somewhere comfortable. And now that it's dark and you're comfortable, turn off some of the lights, because sometimes it's easier to see when the lights are low, and if the air around you grows cool, and you can feel a chill breath on the back of your neck. It's only the other side trying to say hello. They've been waiting for quite a long time. It's lonely being dead. Guide for Urban Exploration. If you're anything like me, creepy, looking abandoned buildings, having an almost irresistible attraction as destinations for adventurous excursions, Attractive destinations include abandoned buildings, usually the older the better, and especially asylums and churches, ex-military bases, and anything else interesting and off limits. We all know that trespassing is illegal, but if you're as irresistibly attracted to these destinations as I am, there are a few things that you may want to keep in mind. Many urban explorers bring back small souvenirs from their excursions. I still have 2 coffee mugs from the Ladd Center, which was precious to me, but I ask that if you do decide to visit some place with the purpose of exploring it, that you avoid the urge to destroy or vandalize anything while you're there. Everyone loves the sound of breaking glass, and it's sometimes gratifying to leave your mark for future explorers to discover, but please, think about preserving the site for other explorers. Vandalism only serves to increase security surveillance or make the site more likely to face destruction as a safety hazard and a popular destination for unwanted visitors. It's perfectly acceptable to take as many pictures as you desire, but the best souvenirs will be your memory for the experience. Things that you might want to remember to bring along with you: light, photography, of course, hair, like maybe wearing a baseball cap, or if you have long hair, tying it. The different attire, definitely wear sensible shoes, sneakers with thick skid-proof soles, or even better, work boots. The floors of abandoned buildings are often cluttered with debris and filth, and sometimes damp or flooded. Also keep in mind that you may have to avoid wild animals and other buzzards and hazards. Definitely wear work gloves. And just for your health, be sure to be aware that there are some places that have mold and dust. If you're predisposed to allergies, you may want to invest in a good dust mask. In some old buildings, there's lead paint, dust, and asbestos. I'm not too worried about breathing in a little toxic dust, but some of you may not want to be careless. Then there's the legalities. Finally, as I stated earlier, we all know that trespassing is illegal. If you're uncomfortable with possible illegal things, there are many excellent places of supernatural interest that are perfectly legal to visit and explore. It's important to keep in mind that even going onto properties that are not for the public and can be considered trespassing, if you enter an abandoned building, that can be considered illegal entry and trespassing. And if you had to do anything to a window or door to get into the building, it becomes breaking and entering. If your presence as an uninvited guest is discovered, which sometimes does happen, remain calm. Don't make an awkward situation worse. Treat whoever apprehends you with respect and politeness. calmly and politely explained that you wanted to visit the location, but your intention was to just explore and take pictures, while showing them your camera, not to break things or put up graffiti, and that while you were exploring, you were careful not to accidentally damage anything, and you are quite sorry and do not plan on returning. You might get your camera taken away, but that beats having to spend a day at court dressed in your really nice clothes and maybe having to do 20 hours of community service or something lame like that. On a final notice, I implore you to not bring any weapons along with you while urban exploring. Having a small pocket knife or pocket multi-tool like a Swiss Army knife or a Leatherman can be convenient and handy, especially if your hair or clothes get snagged and you have to cut yourself loose. But it's completely unnecessary to bring a big hunting knife or even worse, a handgun, along for the trip. If you're looking for ghosts, a weapon won't do any good against them. Having a weapon just makes it that much more likely that someone will accidentally get hurt, and being discovered while urban exploring just gets more complicated if you're running around with a samurai sword. Please be safe, be smart, and send me a set of your awesome pictures. Or even better, take me along with you the next trip. Chapter 1: The DeFeo Murders and the Amityville Horror. Like many people, the first word that came to my mind when discussing Long Island and the paranormal was Amityville. 20 miles from New York City, 2.5 square miles in size, with a population of almost 10,000, Amityville is known for its pleasant location on the coast of Long Island. Amityville would have probably been content to be known for these common everyday facts, but a tragic incident changed the reputation of this quiet coastal community forever. The story began with a young man named Ronald DeFeo Jr. Ronald DeFeo was troubled. 23 years old, he was known to use illicit substances recreationally and did not see eye to eye with his father, who was a strict disciplinary with a temper that was violent. These qualities alone would not have made Ronald exceptional in his time. What made Ronald different was that on the morning of November 13, 1974, at 3:15 a.m., Ronald walked from bedroom to bedroom of the Long Island home at 112 Ocean Avenue and ended his entire family with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle, 2 shots for each of his parents, and as many for each of his 4 younger brothers and sisters. After ending their lives, Ronald picked up the shell casings and dumped the rifle into the nearby Great South Bay. Later, Ronald burst into Henry's bar and announced that when he came home from work, he found his entire family gone. They were just murdered in their beds. His friends returned to the DeFeo home and found Ronald's whole family unalived, and the police were called to do an investigation. They investigated the scene of the massacre. The next day, Ronald was the prime suspect. Based on the police finding, the empty box for the rifle used in the unaliving of the DeFeo family was in Ronald's room. That night, Ronald confessed to the unaliving and massacre of his entire family. After the detectives wore down his attempt to portray the murders as a mob hit based on his maternal grandfather's involvement with the Colombo crime family, almost a year later, on October 14th, 1975, Ronald went to trial for the murder and massacre of his entire family. The defense's insanity plea was ignored, and Ronald was found unanimously guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder, each conviction carrying a 25 to life sentence. It was during his appeal of his sentence that the story took an even more deeply disturbing tone. Ronald claimed to have been the victim of harassment of a supernatural nature, which motivated him to commit these heinous crimes. Ronald said that he was hounded by a shadowy figure and disembodied voices, and that the harassment worsened until finally he became possessed by these evil forces, and that it was the evil forces which had possessed him that compelled him to murder his whole family. Understandably, the court failed to believe Ronald's story and upheld the initial sentence. Who could believe that a man had become possessed by demonic forces that compelled him to murder his family in cold blood? The house at 112 Ocean Avenue was left empty by the death of all but one of its residents, and the consecutive life sentences to be served by the last remaining member of this unfortunate family, the Lutzes. Enter the Lutzes, who moved into the home on December 18th of 1975. George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children were pleasantly surprised to find such a perfect house in a beautiful neighborhood so affordably priced. Their offer of $80,000 for the $100,000 home was accepted. But their pleasure soon turned to horror, and they lived there for a short 28 days before abandoning the house forever in the middle of the night. This 28-day stay has become legendary in the realm of haunted houses and in American folklore, and has unfortunately branded Amityville, an otherwise pleasant, quiet suburban neighborhood, as the foster home of what may potentially be, at best, a place where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual are thinner than most, allowing the manifestation of a vortex of evil, or at worst, a doorway to hell itself. The entire events that were experienced by the Lutzes during those 28 days, and the way their lives had changed after, suffering through their ordeal, has been the subject of several books, movies, and television specials, 13 listings for Amityville, come up combining film and television sources. When an informal search is done through the Internet Movie Database, http or www.imdb.com. Although this is a profuse amount of media covering one event, the manner in which the story is retold does not maintain consistency in retelling. The simplest and least exaggerated retelling of the Lutz's ordeal seems to be this. After moving in, the Lutzes contacted a Catholic priest to bless their new home, in accordance with their faith. The priest arrived at the house, but while performing a ceremony, they heard a malevolent voice telling them to get out. As presented in the 1979 film adaptation directed by Stuart Rosenberg, Kathy supposedly had difficulty contacting the priest to return and help the family with their paranormal problems after that event. The house was permeated and in infallible odor which no amount of air freshening could banish. Green slime was said to ooze down the walls, and there were unexplainable manifestations of swarms of flies, which flies represent demonic forces, especially when a house is clean and you start to see flies everywhere and there's no reason for it. It is said to have demonic or negative energy and negative entities that are around that specific area. So please do be careful, everyone. Back to the story. George Lutz reportedly found himself waking up every night at 3:15 a.m., which was the time that the mass murder had occurred in the home. George claimed that he found it impossible to stay warm in the house, and that objects in the house seemed to take on a life of their own, changing locations unexpectedly and seeming to be possessed by a malevolent awareness. Kathy Lutz reportedly discovered an unusually painted crawl space in the basement, which was called the Red Room, which the family's dog, Harry, would bark at for unknown reasons. The Lutz's youngest daughter, Missy, began playing with an imaginary friend named Jody. Seemingly innocent and typically childlike, George Lutz found this unsettling. When a rocking chair in his daughter's room would rock by itself, when his daughter's new friend was visiting her, and George reports seeing eyes glowing red with evil intent from outside of the child's window. After 28 days, the Lutzes abandoned their house in the middle of the night, leaving all of their possessions behind. The house was subsequently investigated many times, most famously by paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. A website with a brief article about, with a brief article and pictures from the Warren investigations are on their website, and a link to the Warren's New England Society for Psychic Research website, www.warrens.net. Since the horrifying events of the mid 70s, the house has been owned by a few different owners, all of whom deny the presence or manifestations of paranormal activity. Today, the house, a scenic Dutch colonial house on the coast of Long Island's Great South Bay, built in 1925, looks a bit different these days than it did during the mid 70s when it established its reputation as a decidedly unfortunate place. Formerly 112 Ocean Avenue, the house has been reapportioned as 108 Ocean Avenue in an attempt to avoid unwanted attention by fans of the paranormal who continue to be attracted to the house as a destination for paranormal pilgrimages. The house has also been remodeled, but the remodeling reportedly has been unsuccessful in completely obscuring the house's identity, and it remains recognizable to this day. The events that reportedly occurred in this Long Island community have become burned into our collective consciousnesses as Americans. This connection has been reinforced by the presence and promotions of the story in both print and film, initially presented in the 1977 book The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. The story has gone on to inspire many sequelized novelizations, television specials, and film adaptations. The problem with the Amityville incident stems from the intermixing of the factual accounts with the fiction. The factual events and the fictional legacy have been mixed with liberal freedom by novelists and filmmakers, making it difficult to extricate fact from fiction. A common myth about the Amityville residence, for example, is that it was built on an Indian burial ground. This is an untruth. Although there were Indian burial grounds around Amityville, there were none in the Amityville proper. But this fallacy continues to be part of the myth surrounding the Amityville horror. In the end, despite the enduring appeal of the Amityville events as an attractive touchstone, the modern example of the paranormal for haunted house fans, the truth will only ever be known by the people that claim to have actually experienced the events at the time that the events occurred. And that is where we are going to leave it today, my dear friends. Tune in next time for Chapter 2, The Abandoned Lunatic Asylums of Long Island. I'm your host, Ruby, and I will see you next time, my dear friends. Do not forget to comment down below if you've ever experienced any paranormal things or any scary stories that you've gone through yourself, and I would love to read them in a video. Gather some of them up, maybe about 5 or 6 of them, and definitely read them. And that would honestly be awesome. Until then, my dear friends, this has been Ruby, signing off.